The Utah mother who published a children's book about coping with grief after the sudden death of her husband has now officially been found guilty of his murder after 4 long years. And I only say published because it came out during the trial that she didn't even write the book herself at all.
We found text messages in Miss Richins' phone between her and a contact named Book Writing Lane regarding them writing the book for her.
Yeah, she apparently paid someone something like $2,500 to write the book for her, which I guess was in preparation for her big one. I might go out on a limb and say she's probably not gonna get that big book deal anytime soon. Maybe a true crime documentary or something like that, but unfortunately for her, I don't think they're gonna portray her as she wants to be portrayed. But if you've been around my channel for a while, you might remember I actually covered Kouri Richins and her horrifying behavior a couple of years ago. I made that video like right after she was charged with the crime of poisoning her husband after the autopsy revealed his body contained 5 times the legal dosage of... Yeah, you heard me right. Now, at the time of that video, she had been this grieving widow and a single mother for about a year, and she was trying to publicly promote her book about how to deal with loss any way she could by going on TV, going on TikToks, and so on and so on.
So my husband passed away unexpectedly last year. So it's March 4th was a 1-year anniversary for us. He was 39. We have 3 little boys, 10, 9, and 6. You know, my kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced last year.
But we now know, of course, she didn't even write the book, especially not with the help of her 3 kids, as she claimed she did. So not only did she take the life of her husband, no, she lied about going together with her kids and writing a book together about their grieving and how to cope with grieving. I mean, this is just so many layers of being a monster. It's unbelievable.
Did detectives investigate how Kouri Richins came to appear on Good Things Utah?
Yes, a subpoena was sent to ABC Utah news station. It appeared that they had some kind of standardized form that anyone could fill out to requesting to be on the show, and it looked like Miss Richins had filled that out and they were communicating about the results.
And not to mention, Eric's death, again, never should have happened in the first place. So for her to try to capitalize off of it while she's still, I guess, being too lazy to even write the book herself, this is just outright disgusting. It's all just a really sad and horrifying story about how one selfish mother's choices left her kids not only without a father, but also now without a mother, since Kouri will likely spend the rest of her life behind bars. And that is because recently a jury officially found her guilty of her husband's murder after only 3 hours of deliberation.
We, the jury, unanimously find that the defendant, Kouri Richins, is guilty of aggravated murder.
And not only that, she was also found guilty of a couple other charges, including insurance fraud and forgery, and is now looking at life in prison with a minimum of 25 years. So the entire multi-day trial was live streamed, which actually makes it pretty easy to cover, but she might have chosen to not take the stand to avoid, I don't know, a brutal cross-examination, but regardless, it didn't matter. And at different points during the trial, the court heard about how Kouri racked up millions of dollars in debt, had taken out life insurance policies on her husband, and was even having an affair. So I guess that kind of covers the motives, or at least the possible motives. She might have actually been going for the title, the worst wife ever. But family members, ex-friends, attorneys, co-workers, even her ex-lover took the stand and testified against Kouri, recounting everything from her cold and uncaring demeanor in the wake of his death to the time that she apparently mentioned how her life would be so much easier if Eric was dead.
And she said that in many ways it would be better if he were dead.
Oh, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because obviously the ghostwriter and debt, I mean, that's crazy, but they're also far from the most damning evidence that came out of this trial. There were also bombshell revelations that Eric had apparently spent years privately meeting with divorce attorneys and estate planning lawyers. And this was apparently privately, as in his wife, Kouri, didn't know.
Eric did not want me to have any contact with him via phone or email directly. He wanted everything to go through a third party, his brother-in-law.
So the meetings were planned through his siblings and in-laws, but never Eric directly. And even told one of the attorneys to refrain from emailing him, allegedly to avoid the possibility of Kouri coming across the correspondence while snooping.
Because he was worried that Kouri would be reading his emails. He wanted to leave everything to his kids if possible.
So, I mean, clearly that doesn't scream like a healthy marriage between a husband and wife, but to be fair, Eric had already had his trust broken because he found out that Kouri borrowed a $250,000 home equity line of credit on Mr. Richins' house in Summit County, Utah. What the? I mean, hey, if you are stealing like that from your husband or wife, clearly the relationship is kind of over. But what makes it so much worse is he didn't find out about it until a year later when he stumbled across some information during a bank visit. A handwriting expert from the prosecution said there was also a strong probability that Miss Richins had forged her husband's signature to obtain that credit line. Again, she is really speedrunning, being the worst wife ever. So at least that explains the fraud and forgery charges. And all being said, it's safe to say that Eric would want to, protect his assets and prevent this from happening again. So, him getting in contact with divorce attorneys and estate planners, that checks out and makes sense. But Eric was even considering how assets would be split amongst his children and other family members in the event of his death. And I mean, even though it's important to plan for your kids' future, no matter how young they are, it's pretty unusual for a guy Eric's age to be secretly moving things around behind his wife's back and preparing for his death the way he was. Almost like he kind of had like a inkling that Kouri was up to something not good, which is insanely eerie in itself.
Most people going through divorce, in my experience, aren't thinking beyond what that divorce might look like. They're not thinking about death or estate planning and so forth.
And he might have actually been onto her because he made this very eerie remark that he thought his wife Kouri might have tried to poison him after he suddenly became extremely ill on Valentine's Day.
He said that he thought that Kouri had tried to poison him, but it was more of a funny story. It was like an allergic reaction is what we had thought it was.
So Eric jokingly, I want to accurately...
Yes, we were laughing at the story. Yes, and we all teased Kouri for trying to kill him or poison him or whatever he thought it was.
Okay.
And while sure, they weren't being serious, they joked with Kouri having no idea that they were actually right. And I guess about 2 weeks later, their jokes sadly would become reality. So what exactly happened to Eric? I'll give you the quick recap of that night before we get into the more shocking discoveries from the trial. So on March 4th, 2022, Kouri Richins says that her and her husband just had a normal night at home, just like any other. Well, except on this night, they had a drink to apparently celebrate the fact that Kouri was supposed to be closing on a house for her real estate business the following day.
We had a drink together at 9 to celebrate something at work tomorrow.
So Kouri's side of the story, she says that she brought a Moscow Mule to Eric in bed, along with a THC gummy. Then she said that she went to her kids' bedroom and fell asleep because they were apparently having night terrors at the time.
We went to bed. I went to bed with my kids. He went to bed in our bed.
What time did you guys go to bed?
9:30.
9:30? Okay.
9:45.
So I guess they just, cheered. He chugged the drink and then she immediately went to bed with one of their kids after chugging a drink. I don't know. It just kind of seems off, obviously. But hours later, at around 3 a.m, Kouri says that she woke up from her kid's room and returned to her own bed. But when she got there and felt Eric sleeping, he was cold to touch and heavy.
I just woke up. When I sleep with my kids, I always wake up and I go back in my own bed. Mm-hmm. I just crawled over on his side.
Okay.
So she then says that she called 911 and first responders arrived at the scene, capturing the rest of the horrifying ordeal on their body cams. And obviously, everyone reacts in traumatic situations like this very differently, and you can't only judge someone based on how they act when they're in shock. But now she's been convicted, so we don't actually have to give her the benefit of the doubt anymore. So with that being said, Kouri shifts from hysterical tears to being able to recall various facts fairly easily and waiting calmly to answer more questions. So a lot of people on the internet were saying that she was faking her tears and trying to avoid police noticing based on the way that she kept, covering her face as time goes on. So naturally, she was claiming she had no idea what could cause this. The THC gummy, the allergy shots, two things that absolutely do not cause this.
Weed gummies. Sometimes he'll go gummies before he goes to bed. And then he just said he was really tired because he got his allergy shots yesterday morning.
Kouri also recalls that Eric apparently had Lyme's disease, and she lists, a whole plethora of things that she was like, oh, maybe this happened, or maybe this could have caused this.
Does he have any medical conditions or anything like that?
He has Lyme's disease.
So no heart problems or anything like that?
No, I mean, he just said his chest was hurting when he went to bed, but that's, I mean, not, if he doesn't drink enough water, you know, when he gets on the bike downstairs, I don't know, it didn't.
So I guess her thought process behind the various things that could have ended his life was confusing to say the least, but her story conveniently places her outside of the bedroom when Eric passed away, allowing her to, I guess, feign ignorance and toss out a bunch of false leads. But I guess another one was that he had a history of abusing pain medication back in high school.
Any history of prescription abuse?
I mean, when he was in high school and stuff, yeah.
Okay.
Pain pills, I think.
And I mean, that's just downright evil. Like, knowing that his life was taken and she was responsible and she's throwing out stuff like this. So now we know that she poisoned him and then tried to frame him as some sort of like secret addict to his friends and family. Like, this is just so sad. You have to be such a soulless monster to go on and do this. I don't know how a person like this can look at their kids knowing that she took their father's life. But I guess as equally as disgusting this is, she seemed to hope that she could use a part of this as her defense. And I guess this assumption is based on the most damning piece of evidence presented in the trial, because there was a letter found in Kouri's cell in 2023 after she had been arrested, known as the Walk the Dog note, because jurors were told that the 6-page letter was written by Kouri to her mother, Lisa Darden. And in it, she outlined some ideas that she had about what her family could say to her lawyers when they testified. Most of it was her, again, trying to paint Eric as some secret addict. Like, I guess some sneaky guy who just tricked everyone he knew. Because as far as everyone could tell from the outside, Eric was a very successful and responsible husband and father. Like, he wasn't spending a bunch of money or acting shady or secretive. And in the note, Kouri writes that she was hoping that her brother could recall the time that Eric got on pain pills and from Mexico and did not tell Kouri. And then also, I guess, relay that information to her lawyer at the time, Sky Lazaro.
Here is what I'm thinking, but you have to talk to Ronnie. He would probably have to testify to this. He will need to tell Sky at the meeting next week. Upon information and belief, just like they say, a year prior to Eric's death, Ronnie was over watching football one Sunday, and Eric and Ronnie were chatting about Eric's Mexico trips. Eric told Ronnie he gets pain pills and from Mexico from the workers at the ranch. Not to tell me because I would get mad, because I always said he just gets high every night and won't help take care of the kids.
She also states there's photos on her phone of Eric passed out, which I guess could be used as evidence according to her, but those photos could also just be of him sleeping.
There are pictures in my phone of Eric passed out on the floor or in the chair.
I feel like everyone in a relationship, especially a long-term relationship, has pictures of their significant other sleeping. This is normal to have and absolutely does not mean that they're an addict and are passed out from using something crazy. But she continues on. Ronnie never told me about this conversation. Eric finally told me and asked if Carmen could get him some. Carmen being Eric and Kouri's housekeeper who testified during the trial that she actually sold Kouri on multiple occasions leading up to Eric's passing.
Did Kouri Richins ever ask you to purchase for her illicit drugs?
Yes.
How many times?
4.
Did you purchase illicit drugs for her?
Yes.
How many times?
4.
And Carmen says that Kouri reached out asking if she could help her get some pain medication for, I don't know, an investor apparently? Like, what?
She had reached out and asked if I could do her a favor, and I said, yeah, probably, what is it? And then she had called me and asked me if I could reach out to somebody for some pain meds for an investor that she knew. And I told her I could see what I could do.
What a fascinating thing to get for an investor. And she also said after the first or 2 transactions, Kouri reached out to Carmen again, asking for the Michael Jackson stuff. Excuse me, what? So was she looking for something to, end someone's life? I don't know. There's a whole bunch of ways to interpret that.
What you do tell them is not that Kouri didn't ask for, she asked for the Michael Jackson drug.
Yes.
You tell them that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't know how to interpret that, but the substance that apparently took Michael Jackson's life wasn't even. So, interesting comment regardless. But the date of this insane request was February 11, 2022. And this is apparently just days before he was sick on Valentine's Day and joked about being poisoned. And then she made another request, and that came on February 26th. Again, just days before his passing. I mean, seriously, there was just so much evidence stacked against Kouri from the start here. I don't even know what she thought was gonna happen here. Not to mention, she seems pretty emotionless the whole time, aside from a few eyebrow raises at witness testimonies. Like, I feel like she essentially knew that she got caught, but I guess she thought she'd just go down with a sinking ship and maybe pray for some forgiveness from a jury member. I don't know. Regardless, that didn't go too well for her. And on top of everything else we covered, there was apparently evidence of her planning a life with another man at the time she took the life of Eric. And this new dude was apparently named Josh Grossman. And I guess this dude thought she was getting a divorce. So Josh, who is, for obvious reasons, no longer dating Kouri, he testified against her in court and claimed he had no knowledge of her plan to, murder her husband. And she also did confide with him about wishing he or Eric could just go away. But Josh says at the time, he didn't think that she meant she was going to take his life. And honestly, I don't think anyone would. Like, this is such a bizarre case. I feel like any normal human being would just assume, yeah, she's divorcing him. So, she could actually go on and live a life with this guy and not be behind bars for the rest of her life. But unfortunately for the story, most of the horrible assumptions are true. Luckily though, Eric's family is getting justice as Kouri was found guilty on multiple charges, the most important one being the murder of her husband.
Count 1, aggravated murder. We, the jury, unanimously find that the defendant, Kouri Richins, is guilty of aggravated murder.
And her fake shocked face and just delayed head bow when they read the guilty verdict, that's just insane.
We, the jury, unanimously agree that the prosecution has proved the following circumstance or circumstances regarding count 1 beyond a reasonable doubt. The homicide was committed for pecuniary gain, and the homicide was committed by means of the administration of any substance administered in a lethal amount, dosage, or quantity.
And like I mentioned, she was also charged with attempted aggravated murder, forgery, and insurance fraud, because I guess she was just hungry for the insurance benefits as well. But as of right now, her sentencing is May 13th, which apparently would have been Eric's 44th birthday. This whole story is just tragic, especially for the kids. They lost both of their parents because of their mother's selfish actions. Because currently she's facing life in prison with a minimum sentence of 25 years. But that's it for today's video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.